To become a New Zealand citizen, you must meet the following requirements. Hey guys, welcome back. If you are new here, I am the Sassy Engineer. Click the subscribe button, like my videos, watch all my videos. You're welcome. Today I'll be talking about New Zealand citizenship. I know many of you are on that pathway to owning one of the world's strongest passports. New Zealand passport is one of the 6th passports in the world according to the Passport Ranking Index. It ties with Czech Republic, Poland, Australia, and it gives you visa-free access to 147 countries. That's huge. So, how do you become a New Zealand citizen? First, there are 3 main categories of New Zealand citizenship. Citizenship by birth, by descent, and by grant. And the first 2, at least one of your parents needs to be a New Zealand citizen. Well, except you were born before 2006. I have explained it in this video, so go and check it out. I'm here for those who will be looking at citizenship by grant, aka immigrants. Wow, grants, immigrants. Anyway, there are 3 key requirements that you must meet: presence in New Zealand, language, character requirements. Children and Samoan citizens don't need to meet all 3. The rest of y'all do. Okay, language. It's pretty straightforward. You need to be able to speak English because they speak English here. It's their official language. And if English is not your first language, you need to be able to prove that you can speak English. So documents like school certificate, school report, English language test, employer reference letter, university academic record, university certificates like bachelor's, master's, PhD, diploma, and the rest. They could also call you for interview if they feel suspicious of your, English language proof and all that. And if their suspicions are right, they will tell you what to do next. What that is, I don't know, but they'll tell you. Now, character needs no explanation, but I will explain it anyway. First, the minimum criteria here is good character. That's the basic. What I mean, traffic offenses. If police checks show that you have traffic offenses like 100 or more demerit points within the last 3 years, and what's the other one, a recent pattern of other fines and infringements in New Zealand or anywhere else, the citizenship officer will have a chat with you. What they talk about, I don't know, but you'll have the talk. Parking tickets, speed ticket, speed camera fines, those ones don't apply, so don't worry, but check your speed. Stop driving anyhow. But yeah, those ones will not affect their decision. But you see those demerit points in the last 2 years, or maybe your ways are not pure, they have a chat with you. Now, other crimes and investigations, those very big ones, those are the ones that you should worry about the most, because it's unlikely to get you a citizenship. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but it can severely reduce your chances. So, like, for instance, you've been convicted of crime in the last 3 years, you spent any time in prison in the last 7 years, you've had a prison sentence of more than 5 years, an undischarged protection order, you have charges pending against you in another country. Of course, you need to declare this. Don't lie, it just makes the matter worse. If any of these things applies to you, write a letter explaining what happened, attach it with copies of supporting documents. It doesn't mean, like I said, that you will not get it. It just means that your processing time might take longer because it's not something that they rush into. They have to think about it and the repercussions on them. Yeah, so that's that for that. So the main requirement that everyone talks about, because every typical immigrant tries to avoid, tries to maintain good character. Obviously, we learn the language before most of us come here. So most immigrants try to maintain good character, and language is just writing tests. It's not a big deal. Just a matter of money. But if you studied here, not a problem either. So language and character is usually not a problem for immigrants. Presence in New Zealand. The main criteria that immigrants really look out for is the presence in New Zealand. to the main requirement, presence in New Zealand. This is the third key requirement. Basically, they need to see that you have been living as a New Zealand resident for at least the last 5 years. You have spent enough time in New Zealand in the last 5 years, and you intend to keep living in New Zealand. You don't also need to have a permanent residence visa or permit. You can apply with an ordinary resident visa or permit so far as the residence visa is current and any conditions on that visa has been met or cancelled. It's your job to check that the conditions are met or cancelled before applying for the citizenship. For example, you may have a skilled migrant resident visa with section 49(1) conditions. That very common one. You can remove that. There is also no fee according to the website for the removal of this section 49(1) condition. So note that. PR visas don't have any conditions on it, so that one no problem. You can also apply for citizenship if you had more than one type of visa in the last 5 years, it says here. However, each of those visas must have allowed you to live here indefinitely. So it's not just one resident visa. If you have multiples that allowed you to live here indefinitely in the last 5 years, you can also apply. The number of years is 5 years, okay? The 5 years are counted backwards from the day you apply for your citizenship. Okay, guess what? The requirement is not strictly to have held a New Zealand resident visa for the full 5 years. We're going to explore that. The requirement is to have been physically present in New Zealand as a resident, of course, for a certain amount of time during the last 5 years. The certain amount of time is what we're going to look at. The certain amount of time is at least 240 days in each 12-month period and 1,350 days across the last 5 years. So be careful when you're traveling in and out of New Zealand, even if it's short trips, because they add up. And if it's longer than 4 months in any 12-month period or 15 months in the 5-year period, you might not meet the requirement unless maybe you're going for crown services. You know, that one counts, like doing stuff for New Zealand government. Ajala traveler, careful, travel with care. Lastly, you have to intend to live in New Zealand. The net migration, it breaks your heart. Okay, so you have to intend to live and keep living in New Zealand. But sometimes, you know, you'll be living in another country. That one, sometimes you know that you'll be living in another country. They allow that, but it's not for all cases. It's for certain cases. And those certain cases have New Zealand citizen or New Zealand government written all over it. So yeah. And you're probably thinking, how would they know that I have travel plans? Well, you're going to be asked for your travel plans for the next 12 months. And if you have travel plans, you're going to need to prove to them that New Zealand is home. So things like, that is easy, Sha. So things like, you know, your study, job, own or rent a property, you have assets like cars, like, you know, furniture, those, you know, things that show that New Zealand is home if you have travel plans. Because for instance, you may want to go and celebrate your citizenship, something like that. Yeah. So that is that for the presence in New Zealand. Now, for children aged 15 and under do not need to have spent a specific amount of time in New Zealand in the last 5 years if at least one of their parents or even legal guardian is already a New Zealand citizen or is applying for citizenship and has met the requirements. But they will need to have the right to live in New Zealand indefinitely and intend to stay in New Zealand after they get the citizenship. And depending on their age, they will also need to meet language and character requirements. And if they're applying a loan and their parents are not New Zealand citizens, then they will need to have been in New Zealand on a resident status for 8 months or more in the last 5 years. So that's for children. For Samoans, remember I said that children and Samoans don't need to meet all 3 requirements. So for Samoans, theirs is really special. Anyway, it's good to be a Samoan. Samoans that came to New Zealand after 14 September 1982, you just need to show that you enter New Zealand legally and you have the right to be here indefinitely. That's all. That's all you need to show. You can apply even if you haven't lived in New Zealand for up to 5 years. You just need to show that you enter New Zealand legally and you have the right to stay in New Zealand indefinitely. And voila, you are qualified to apply. Lucky. Anyway, now you know the requirements. What next? Next step is to get your documents ready. Okay, if you are eligible to apply, if you've made the presence in New Zealand condition, you made the character requirements, you made the language requirements, get your documents ready. You need a passport photograph that has been taken not less than 6 months ago, and it meets the passport photo requirements, because every country passport has photo requirements. Your identity document, so they will need your birth certificate or birth record, a full birth certificate or birth record, and they will also need your passport or any travel documents, and you may need to submit supporting documents depending on your situation. For instance, if you have to do some explanation, you can submit that. You will also need an identity referee or witness, and that person must have known you for at least 1 year or since birth, not be related to you or be a part of your extended family. That person must not be living with you. That person understands that they may be contacted to verify, details of your application. That person has a current or expired New Zealand passport. This will sort of vary depending on if you're using a witness or you're using identity referee. But standard, that person must have known you for at least 1 year or since birth, and must not be related to you or be a part of your extended family, and doesn't live in the same house as you, and he must have a New Zealand passport. So those are like the key similarities, whether you're using identity referee or you're using witness. Once you have all your documents ready, you apply. So you can do your application online, by post, or in person. Because this application is not free now, they have to make money. Income revenue generation. So applicants that are aged 16 and over pay $470. Yeah, $470.20. Applicants age 15 or under pay half of that amount, and it takes 3 to 14 months. According to their website, it takes 3 to 14 months to find out if your application to become a New Zealand citizen has been approved. But that time can be longer or shorter depending on your situation, honestly. So brace yourself. Now, if your application is approved, congratulations, but there are some things that you need to do again before you fully become a New Zealand citizen. You'll be required to attend a citizenship ceremony. This will be organized by your local city or town council, depending on where you are. And it can take up to 4 months sometimes to get citizenship ceremony. But they are now making the thing really fast these days. I think around that COVID time, took a long time for some people. You will be sent an invitation to attend your citizenship ceremony. At the ceremony, you must swear. You must swear an oath or affirmation of allegiance. That's what I'm reading. At the ceremony, you must swear an oath or affirmation of allegiance before you can receive your certificate of citizenship and officially become a New Zealand citizen. So if you are not ready to swear to the crown, no need, because it's part of the ceremony. In some countries, you write exams. This one doesn't need you to write exam. This one just needs you to get your documents ready, meet the 3 key criteria, and once it's approved, you come and swear oath. Some other countries, you write exams, you still swear that oath. Because you have to place allegiance to the country. So once you have your certificate of citizenship, straight up apply for passport, New Zealand passport. It takes a while too, if you have travel plans in between, I will say once you get your certificate of citizenship, apply for the passport. So yeah, that's just it about getting New Zealand citizenship. It's very simple, very straightforward. If you're approaching 5 years since obtaining your New Zealand residence visa, then you may be eligible for citizenship. So start thinking about it now and get your documents ready to apply and unlock 147 visa-free access to countries. That is like baddest. Anyway, in summary, what am I saying? Number 1, the eligibility requirement is to have been present in New Zealand, physically present in New Zealand for the required number of days while holding a residence class visa. It's not student visa or anything. That visa has to be a resident class visa for at least 240 days within a 12-month period and 1350 days, so 1,350 days across a 5-year period. And that 5-year period is counted from the day that you applied for your citizenship. So make sure that your math is matching. Also know that you don't have to hold a permanent resident visa, but if you are holding a residence visa, there should be no conditions on it. Section 49 conditions, for instance. So if you just have a residence visa and you meet the presence in New Zealand qualification requirements, good character and everything, but you have a condition on your visa, then you should work on getting that conditions met if you haven't met it, or canceling it if you can cancel it. And know that cancelling section 49 bracket 1 conditions are free. You must also be able to demonstrate that you are of good character and you have sufficient knowledge of English to be able to manage independently in different situations. You should be able to speak English, you should be of good character, you should have been in New Zealand within the number of times that they said on a residence visa that has no condition. I hope that helps. So, if you're ready to apply, you meet everything, go ahead and submit the application. Do not waste time. And once you have gotten your certificate of citizenship, quickly submit your passport application so that you can start, Ajala traveler around the world. Remember that you must want to continue living in New Zealand. Otherwise, it's so heartbreaking when they see the migration and you leave us here. Why? Like and subscribe for more content.